Hey guys, this whole video started with a throwaway line from Hank Green, this one.
Przewalski's horse is not pronounced like that. It's pronounced Przewalski's horse.
I thought weird because this pronunciation is nothing that I know of, and I thought that that man is actually from like Russia or Russian Empire at that time. So am I in the wrong here? Because the name that Hank Green just said, this one,
Przewalski,
sounds a lot like a Polish pronunciation. So I was like, was that man Polish? Am I missing something? Did Russia sort of steal the identity of that man or something like that? What is going on? And so I decided to go onto a little investigation into history to tell you decisively, once and for all, how that man's name is pronounced and subsequently what is the name of that horse. So join me. So Przewalski indeed had Polish roots. As of right now, my theory is that Hank met somebody at the zoo with like Polish roots or of a Polish descent, and they told him this particular version of how they would pronounce Przewalski's surname. However, is it actually correct? Was that man actually Polish? Did he consider himself Polish? And how he himself spelled or pronounced his own name? Let's figure this out. So let's examine the evidence. First of all, Hank's pronunciation of this man's name, Przewalski, is absolutely 100% categorically incorrect. Then, even though, as far as I understand, in Polish language, when letters R and Z are close together, they form a sound sh. But is it actually correct to use the Polish pronunciation of that man's name? Or surname, actually. Because, again, even though he had some Polish roots, he didn't necessarily consider himself to be Polish, so to speak. Because he chose to use a Cyrillic alphabet, he chose to speak in Russian language, he served Russian Empire, and in general his voyages were sponsored by Russian Empire state. And if you know anything about the history, Polish and Russians don't really go together that well. They don't consider themselves to be friends. The parallels can be absolutely easily drawn right now between Russia and Ukraine, for example. Polish and Russia, basically the same thing. So you kind of have to choose one, either be Polish person or be of a Russian Empire person, essentially. Also, as far as I can see, apparently, Przewalski was somewhat chauvinistic, imperialistic, and maybe even racist. So maybe not a particularly great person by today's modern standards, really. And also, while I've read both in English and in Russian certain kind of heated things that that man presumably said, I couldn't find them all really in his books. So I'm not really sure how much of what ascribed to him he actually said in words in his books or whatever. Hey guys, editing me. I just wanted to give you extra details and provide you even more context. In a foreword to his book Fourth Journey to Central Asia, and then there's a long name, I'll put everything on the screen, Przewalski writes, scientific collections acquired during a current trip divided as previously. So he's done it before already in such manner. Zoological collection transferred to the Museum of Emperor's Academy of Sciences. Botanic collection to the Emperor's Botanical Garden, and small mineralogical sort of samples to the Geological Office of St. Petersburg University. And then Przewalski adds that in 1887, Sovereigner Herr Cesarewicz, who will later become known as Nikolai II, was basically given 25,000 rubles to actually basically publish these books and the findings of this journey. So 25,000 Russian rubles in 1887. Is this a lot? Bear in mind, these are kind of a little bit rough numbers, but I've done a little bit of digging. So Russia sort of adopts a gold standard essentially, and 1 Russian ruble in 1897. So the years are a little bit off, so like about 10 years, but let's assume that it was something similar to that. In 1897, 1 Russian ruble starts to cost 0.77 grams of gold because of the gold standard. Now then, what is the price of gold in 1897? Apparently, it is roughly $19 per troy ounce. So in a troy ounce is roughly 31 grams of gold. So 1 gram of gold is basically like $0.6, but in 1 Russian rubles there's only 0.77 grams of gold. So multiplying, and it's like 0.462, but let's say 0.46. So Russian ruble in around like 1819 to like 1900 is basically like 0.46 dollars, but I've also found in Russian Wikipedia that like a theoretical parity sort of cost of Russian ruble to gold was 1 Russian rubles is 0.773 of US dollars, right? So 1 Russian ruble around that time is anywhere between 0.46 and 0.77 US dollars. So how much is it actually in today's 2024 money? $1 in 1890 is basically around $34 today. We get anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 for this one book. So once again, Przewalski was given a lot of money by Russian Empire, essentially, by the heir of Russian Empire, and he was even dedicating this book to actual Nikolai Alexandrovich Nikolai II. Hey guys, extra editing me here with even more details. So I just learned from Przewalski's sort of biography written in 1890, right after his death essentially, that in May of 1863, with the beginning of Polish uprising, Przewalski at the time was studying at sort of like a war academy. Basically all the senior students were asked if they want to prematurely kind of, or like sort of earlier end the study and essentially be sent to Poland. And Przewalski was one of those people who essentially sort of volunteered, one of the first. I think he wanted to reunite with his regiment that he was like previously stationed before, something like that. And in July of 1863 he was promoted to lieutenant and appointed regimental adjutant. I'm giving you this context so you like truly understand which side this person was, essentially, to squash any doubts, essentially. Even though he had Polish roots, he was studying in Russia, and during the Polish uprising, he wasn't on the side of Polish. He volunteered to join essentially the army stationed in Poland to apparently, again, like it's not stated in his biography because why would they say it, something like that, right? But it is absolutely implied that he was there to squash that uprising. So he was absolutely squarely on the side of Russia, Russian Empire, and basically against Poland. Just so we're absolutely totally clear in terms of like his allegiances. I just found out this little context and I thought it's quite important one. So yeah. In general, it was just really fascinating to read his sort of journal travel book because it gave kind of direct insight into man's head and what was happening sort of during his travels back like 150 years ago. Books are the best. But back to the actual topic of this video. How to actually pronounce the surname Przewalski. And it's exactly how I just pronounced it. Przewalski. On the titular photograph on Wikipedia, there is only one hint that it can be anything but Przewalski. That's because there is a signature presumably written by the man himself. In that signature, there is a letter very much similar to the letter sh, the one from Polish pronunciation, if you remember. But even that sh has like extra curve essentially, so it might be like misspelled or is just like written weird, so it's like really inconclusive a little bit. But besides that one evidence, in all other places I've been able to find his surname, he always writes it as Przewalski. What's interesting is that at the time, apparently in the Russian alphabet, in the Cyrillic alphabet, they've used both letters E, one that looks like this and the one that looks like this. And one of them is used right now in sort of in Belarusian language and in Ukrainian language. And in Russian language, Latin essentially version got removed and replaced by this letter E. But despite these little discrepancies, even in the earliest book that I was able to find, dating back from like 1870, his name was written Przewalski, not Przewalski, and definitely 100% not Przewalski. And one more interesting quirk, sort of the conjugated version of the ending of a surname was ending on ago, and right now it would be considered a mistake because right now it would be ogo. The last thing to know for every English-speaking person who's watching this video, often when you kind of translate Russian or like Ukrainian or Belarusian names into English language, for example, you lose certain sounds, and I wanted to address this right now. I wanted to take one more minute to explain to you this consonant y at the end of surname Przewalski, for example. It's basically the same sound as you have in the word may. You hear at the end y. May. And also there is this letter j that is not really present in English language, but it is the same sort of sound as when you say J, you hear de j, J, de j, J, J. So there is this j and d, and both of them are separate letters and separate sounds in Russian language and in Cyrillic alphabet in general. So in the end, what is the only definite correct pronunciation of this man and this horse, and it is Przewalski. Przewalski. Once again, Przewalski. And the horse will be like properly called Przewalski's horse. If you pronounce it sort of faster, you can kind of lose a little bit that y at the end, Przewalski, but it is still there. Because if you drop that y at the end, you once again make it sound Polish, like that Kowalski from like Madagascar, for example, something like that. And everything points to the fact that that man, Przhevalskiy Nikolai Mikhailovich, did not really consider himself to be Polish, but considered himself to be sort of proud Russian, so to speak. So I think it's only fair to pronounce his name as he intended it. So it is Przewalski, and the horse would be named correctly Przewalski's horse. Przewalski's horse. That's the only way. And now there's only one last thing to do. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to this video if you enjoyed it, and share it with others. Maybe post it to other social media. I would definitely appreciate this. And thank you very much for actually watching it. I hope to see you in the next video, where I will be going through all of the Cyrillic / Russian alphabet, and will be telling you how to actually pronounce all of those weird things so you never feel confused anymore. Okay guys,